I'm referencing the ACLU because they provided a very thorough analysis concerning the restrictions that were alleged to our First Amendment rights of free speech and religious expression. They wrote, the proposed Lincoln Ordinance is limited to minors, and it only limits medical professionals from conducting sexual orientation change efforts. Pastors and other faith leaders would not be prohibited from preaching what they believe regarding sexual beliefs. This works to hold individuals that hold a professional mental health or medical licenses abide by the standards of care, code of ethics, and not use harmful practice. The proposed ordinance also does not prohibit professionals from talking to their clients about sexual orientation or gender identity issues. Conversion therapy is a form of medical treatment, albeit an unethical and disavowed one. The proposed Lincoln Ordinance targets the quality and type of care that licensed professionals can provide to a minor patient. This ordinance protects the provider's ability to express his or her opinion regarding conversion therapy. This ordinance does not compel providers to disclose facts or information with which they disagree. This ordinance does not limit what religious leaders and parents can say to children. This ordinance does not limit providers from discussing, seeking sexual orientation change effort treatment options. The only thing the ordinance prohibits the therapist from doing is actually performing conversion therapy on a minor, given the significant risk of harm. So for this reason and the reason of so many of those who testified in support of this amendment, I will support this as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman Raybould. Councilman Christensen?
I have a question for law, city law. Do we have someone here from there? Here we go.
Johansi Christie, City Attorney. We are always here when you are here.
I knew it. So the state of Nebraska regulates professional licensure. Does this change that relationship by having the city regulate these professional licenses?
When you say change the relationship,
Where the city has not in the past regulated licensure by the state or approved activities or disapproved activities under the description of a licensed professional?
the way that I would answer that, and I think maybe this will get there are instances where the city has gotten involved with, in other instances where the state is responsible for licensing. It doesn't happen all the time. The main, without getting too much into the weeds, the main concern is it inconsistent, right? We talk about preemption, either express preemption, conflict, or field preemption. And I think that that's kind of what your question is getting at. We have, while not directly on point, but I think, and maybe not perfect examples, but both 7F and 7G today kind of dealt with that, where you have the city at least involved with in a situation where the state is also responsible for licensing. You see that food code, maybe a little bit with liquor license as well. So it's not completely unheard of.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilwoman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 weeks ago, I heard many people speak passionately against conversion therapy, some from personal experience, which was horrifying, cruel, and abusive, and I listened as nearly the same number of people denounced the cruel and abusive practices described as unacceptable. This is where we agree. Abuse is abuse. Shaming and bullying are not therapeutic treatments employed by credible, licensed medical, mental health, and medical practitioners. Many of the individuals who testified in dozens of emails in the same vein argued that the ordinance as written would bar a parent from teaching their own children their Christian beliefs, or would bar a minister from offering counseling that directs a young person to look to the Bible. That is not true. The ordinance as written would not ban counseling that seeks understanding, provides supports, facilitates a person's identity exploration and development. It doesn't prohibit a parent's ability to teach their children their values and core beliefs, and it doesn't limit what a minister says. It does not limit his or her ability to offer religious and pastoral counseling to their young congregants from whatever their religious position. Passing this ordinance doesn't ban the free exercise of religion as promised in our Constitution, but it does ban a discredited therapeutic practice that has been deemed immoral, unethical, and ineffective by the American Psychological Association, the Medical Association, and the American Counseling Association, and others. I will be voting to ban this practice of conversion therapy with minors, and I will also defend each of our rights to practice our religion as we see fit.
Thank you, Councilwoman Washington. Councilwoman Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also am going to vote in support of this ordinance. I think it's really important for Lincoln. I think it's who we are as an inclusive city. Just a couple of reasons. I want to tell you why I support this ordinance. Healthcare providers would be found negligent upon employing any outdated surgical techniques. This is no different to me than that. There's also no evidence that suggests conversion therapy is effective. There is evidence, however, that proves conversion therapy leads to higher risk of depression, substance abuse, and sometimes loss of faith. I also heard during our public hearing that 85 other municipalities across the country have banned conversion therapy. That speaks very loudly to me as well. And lastly, I'll just say, reiterate what Councilwoman Washington said. This is a human rights issue, and for me, that's fundamental. And we can do better, and we should. And if we've passed this ordinance, we do better as a community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ward. Any further discussion? I just have a statement that I would like to make also. And that's, fellow council members, thank you for allowing me to introduce this ordinance to protect youth mental health in our city by banning conversion therapy. People sharing their stories of survival takes a level of strength that many will never understand. Our neighbors bared their souls 2 weeks ago to share their stories of survival in an effort to help us get a better understanding on the realities of conversion therapy. They came up to publicly tell their experience for an ordinance that will not apply to them and won't undo the trauma that they experienced. They shared their past so the next generation won't have to relive it. Experts and mental health providers shared data, research, and best practices for individuals who are struggling with their sexual orientation and gender identity. They clearly laid out how this denounced treatment can lead to depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicide. They did this to protect the next generation from bad actors who share the same profession. Legal experts shared past court rulings and nuances, taking time to respond to our questions to help outline that federal circuit courts have upheld similar ordinances, that this is not an infringement of speech, that talk therapy is a treatment, and that municipalities across our country are implementing similar protections, all to help protect the next generation. In my opening statement, I read part of a letter from the former founders, leaders, and providers of conversion therapy who have come out and said how toxic this practice is to the soul of a child. Now it's up to us, the Lincoln City Council, to protect the next generation. To protect the next generation for kids who grew up just like me. As I shared last week, there will be people watching who are still struggling with their sexual orientation or their gender identity, but struggling not because of what their heart tells them, but because of the fear imposed on them by society. Again, I say to those watching this alone in secret, trying to reconcile their shame and doubt, listen to the messages of survivors. Listen to the therapists and mental health providers and to our community that there is nothing wrong with you and that it does get better. As someone who has been in your shoes, my message to my brothers, sisters, and siblings who are still in the closet, please know that we will fight for you while you are in the closet, and we will be here to love you when you decide it's time to come out. That message saves lives, and this vote will too. Thank you. May we please have a roll call vote?
And we're calling on the vote for the motion by Ward, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Christensen,
No.
Bowers.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-1.
Thank you. May we please move on to the next item?